I was sitting at my kitchen table reviewing my monthly budget spreadsheet when my phone buzzed with a text that would change everything. Ashley, my 17-year-old sister, had sent me a message that made my blood run cold. I need $3,000 for prom, designer dress, professional makeup, hairstyling, limo rental, and after-party expenses. Transfer the money tonight. I stared at the screen in disbelief before typing back, "Earn it yourself, Ashley. Get a part-time job like everyone else." Within 3 minutes, both my parents had texted the same ultimatum: pay for Ashley's prom or get out of this family forever. My hands trembled as I called Ashley, immediately hoping this was some kind of misunderstanding. When she picked up, her voice carried an entitled tone that sent chills down my spine. Finally calling to apologize, Irma. She snapped without even saying hello. "I already ordered my custom dress from that boutique downtown. $1,800, but totally worth it since you're covering everything." "Wait, what?" I stammered. "Ashley, I never agreed to pay for anything. You can't just assume I'll hand over $3,000. "Oh, please," she scoffed. "You make like $60,000 a year at that accounting firm. This is pocket change for you. Besides, I already told my entire friend group about our elaborate plans. Madison's dad is renting us the white stretch Hummer and Chelsea's mom booked the spa package for our group. Everyone's counting on me. You told people I was paying before asking me." The betrayal hit like a physical blow. "Ashley, that's completely inappropriate. You need to learn financial responsibility." "Whatever, Irma. Mom and Dad already explained how this works. You're the successful one, so you help family. It's called loyalty." Before I could respond, my phone rang with Mom's contact. I answered hesitantly. "Irma Louise Martinez." My mother Janet's voice cut through the speaker with practiced guilt. "Your sister called me crying because you're being selfish about prom. Do you realize how hard things have been since your father and I divorced? Ashley deserves one perfect night after everything she's endured." "Mom, $3,000 isn't a reasonable request. Ashley can work part-time and save up or find more affordable options." "Don't lecture me about reasonable, young lady. You live in that fancy apartment, drive that reliable car, and have that stable job while your family struggles. We've been discussing this situation for weeks, and everyone agrees you have an obligation here." "You've been discussing my money for weeks without including me." The manipulation became crystal clear. "Mom, this isn't about helping family. This is about enabling Ashley's unrealistic expectations. Your sister has already made commitments based on your support. If you back out now, she'll be humiliated in front of her entire senior class. Is that what you want?" Before I could answer, she hung up. 5 minutes later, my father David called from his apartment across town. "Irma, what's this nonsense about refusing to help Ashley?" His voice boomed through the phone. "Your mother and I may not agree on much anymore, but we're united on this. Family takes care of family. Dad asking for $3,000 with no notice isn't reasonable. Ashley needs to learn money management before college." "Money management." He laughed bitterly. "You sound like some corporate robot. This is your baby sister we're talking about. She's been looking forward to prom since freshman year, and you're going to destroy that over a few $1,000s. If you don't step up, don't bother calling yourself part of this family anymore." The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone in complete shock. In the span of 30 minutes, my entire family had revealed a side I'd never seen before. They'd been planning this financial ambush for weeks, treating me like their personal ATM rather than their daughter and sister. I realized this wasn't the first time they'd expected me to solve their money problems. Last year, it was Mom's car repair. 6 months ago, Dad needed help with his security deposit. Every time they'd framed it as family obligation rather than personal responsibility. Ashley had never held a real job despite being old enough to work. She spent her allowance on designer makeup and trendy clothes, then expected me to cover major expenses. Mom and Dad had created a monster, and now they wanted me to feed it. 2 days later, Mom called with a request that sounded reasonable on the surface, but felt like a trap. "Irma, honey, let's all sit down together and talk this through like adults. Ashley feels terrible about how everything started, and your father and I want to find a solution that works for everyone. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet at Riverside Grill, a neutral restaurant downtown, where we'd celebrated family milestones and better times. When I walked through the front door, my stomach dropped. This wasn't going to be a discussion, it was an intervention. Ashley sat at a corner booth looking miserable, her eyes red from crying. Mom occupied the seat across from her, wearing her most serious expression. Dad had positioned himself at the head of the table like he was chairing a board meeting. But the biggest shock was seeing Grandma Betty there, my mother's 78-year-old mother who rarely left her assisted living facility for anything less than emergencies. "Sit down, Irma," Dad commanded, gesturing to the empty chair. "We need to address some serious concerns about your attitude toward this family." I sat down slowly, feeling like I was facing a tribunal rather than my relatives. The server approached, but Mom waved her away dismissively. "We're fine for now," she told the young woman. "This is a private family matter." Grandma Betty leaned forward, her weathered hands folded on the table. "Irma, sweetheart, I've been hearing troubling things about your behavior lately. Your mother tells me you've become cold and distant since getting that fancy job." "Grandma, I haven't changed. I just think Ashley should learn to budget and save for her own expenses." "Oh, is that what you call it?" Mom interjected sharply. "Because from where I sit, it looks like you've forgotten where you came from. Ever since you got that college degree and started making decent money, you act like you're better than the rest of us." Dad nodded gravely. "Your mother's right, Irma. Success has gone to your head. You look down on your family now like we're beneath your standards." "That's completely untrue," I protested. "I work hard for my money and I believe Ashley should learn the same work ethic. That's not looking down on anyone that's wanting her to develop life skills." Ashley finally spoke up, her voice shaky with practiced emotion. "Irma, I've already told everyone at school about our prom plans. My boyfriend Tyler's family thinks we're this close-knit, supportive family. If I have to back out now, everyone will know my own sister abandoned me during the most important event of high school." "Ashley, you created this situation by making assumptions and commitments without permission. That's not my responsibility to fix." Grandma Betty shook her head sadly. "In my day, family meant something. When one of us had the means to help, we didn't hesitate. We didn't make excuses or demand that struggling relatives earn our support." Struggling. I looked around the table incredulously. Dad just bought that new fishing boat last month. Mom got her car detailed and went to that expensive spa weekend. Ashley has a closet full of designer clothes. Where's the struggling? The table fell silent for a moment before Dad spoke with quiet menace. "That fishing boat was a necessary purchase for my mental health after the divorce stress. Your mother deserved that spa weekend after everything I put her through. And Ashley's clothes come from clearance sales and birthday gifts. But none of that changes the fact that prom is a once-in-a-lifetime event that requires family support." Mom reached into her purse and pulled out a folded paper. "Irma, I've been keeping track of all the times our family has helped you over the years. When you needed money for college textbooks, when your first apartment required a security deposit, when you had that car trouble right after graduation. We never hesitated to support your dreams." "Those were loans that I paid back with interest," I reminded her, "and the total was maybe $2,000 spread over 4 years. You're asking me to hand over $3,000 for one night with no mention of repayment." Ashley started crying again, louder this time. "This isn't about money, Irma. This is about whether you care about my happiness. Prom only happens once and you're ruining it because you're greedy." Greedy. The accusation hit like a slap. "Ashley, I work 50 hours a week, live in a modest apartment, and drive a 7-year-old Honda. Everything I have I earned through sacrifice and dedication. Wanting you to learn those same values isn't greedy, it's loving." Dad slammed his hand on the table, making the salt shaker jump. "Enough excuses, Irma. Your family is asking for your help, and you're responding with lectures and judgment. Either you step up like a real family member, or you make it clear that your money means more to you than our relationships." "Is that an ultimatum?" I asked quietly. Take it however you want, Mom replied coldly, but understand that your actions right now will determine whether you're welcome at future family gatherings, Ashley's graduation, holiday celebrations, birthday parties. Your participation depends on how you handle this situation. Grandma Betty reached across the table and patted my hand with false sympathy. Sweetheart, just write the check. Family harmony is worth more than money. Don't let pride destroy what we've built together. I looked around the table at faces I'd loved my entire life, now twisted with manipulation and entitlement. They'd orchestrated this entire scene to pressure me into compliance, using emotional blackmail and guilt as weapons. I need to use the restroom, I said quietly, standing up from the table. Irma, we're not finished here, Dad called after me. Actually, we are, I replied without turning around. I walked to the front of the restaurant, paid the hostess $20 to cover whatever my family might order, and left through the front door. Behind me, I could hear Ashley's wails growing louder and Mom calling my name angrily. As I drove home, my phone buzzed with increasingly hostile texts from all 4 family members. They'd revealed their true colors tonight, and there was no going back. Back at my apartment, I sat on my couch feeling emotionally drained, but strangely clear-headed. Something about the restaurant confrontation felt rehearsed, like they'd practiced their arguments beforehand. The way they'd each taken turns attacking me, the prepared talking points, Grandma Betty's convenient presence, it all seemed calculated. Paranoia crept into my thoughts. If they'd been planning this for weeks, what else might they have done behind my scenes? I decided to check my financial accounts just to ease my mind. I logged into my bank account first, expecting to see the familiar list of routine transactions. Instead, my blood ran cold. There, buried among my regular purchases, was a notation I'd never seen before. Credit inquiry, residential verification, authorized user addition attempt. The date was 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks before Ashley's prom demand. My hands shook as I called my bank's customer service line. After navigating through the automated system, I finally reached a human representative. Hi, this is Irma Martinez. I'm seeing a credit inquiry on my account from 2 weeks ago that I didn't authorize. Can you provide more details about this? Let me pull up your account, Miss Martinez. Yes, I see the inquiry you're referring to. Someone attempted to add authorized users to your credit cards. The request was submitted with your social security number and personal information, but it was flagged by our security system because it came from a different address than your registered residence. What address was used? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. The request came from 1847 Maple Street, which our records show as your previous address from several years ago. My parents' house, the address I'd lived at until moving out after college. Was the request submitted online or in person? According to the notes, it was submitted online using your login credentials. However, our security system flagged it because the IP address didn't match your usual location patterns. That's why the request was denied and flagged for review. Someone tried to use my online banking information. The violation felt like a physical assault. What personal information would they have needed? Full name, social security number, date of birth, mother's maiden name, and previous addresses. The request was quite detailed, which is why it initially passed our automated screening. After hanging up, I immediately changed all my passwords and security questions. Then I called my credit card companies to place security alerts on my accounts. Each one revealed the same pattern attempted access using my personal information from my parents' address. My phone rang as I finished the last call. It was my friend Sarah from work. Irma, I hope you don't mind me calling about this, but something weird happened today. Your mom contacted our HR department asking about emergency family loan programs. She told Jennifer that your family was facing a crisis and needed financial assistance, and she wanted to know if the company had any resources to help employees with family emergencies. She called my workplace. I felt my face burning with humiliation. Yeah, and she was really persistent. When Jennifer explained that we don't have those kinds of programs, your mom asked if there was a way to arrange an advance on your salary. She said it was urgent and that you were too proud to ask for help yourself. Sarah, I never authorized any of this. My family is pressuring me to pay for my sister's prom expenses, and apparently they're willing to go to extreme lengths to get the money. That's so inappropriate, Irma. Jennifer was really uncomfortable with the whole conversation. She asked me to reach out to you discreetly to make sure everything was okay. After Sarah hung up, I sat in stunned silence. My family hadn't just planned an emotional ambush, they'd been actively trying to manipulate my financial accounts and professional reputation. The credit card attempts, the workplace contact, the weeks of planning, this was a coordinated campaign to force my compliance. I opened my laptop and checked my social media accounts, wondering what other damage control I might need to do. Ashley's Instagram told the whole story. For the past 3 weeks, she'd been posting about prom preparations, tagging expensive boutiques and luxury service providers. Her bio had been updated to include Prom Queen 2024 with crown emojis. But the most damning evidence was in her stories from 2 days ago. She'd posted screenshots of conversations with friends discussing how her successful sister was covering all the prom expenses. She'd literally been bragging to classmates about my involuntary financial support. My phone buzzed with a text from my cousin Marcus, my uncle's son who lived 2 states away. "Hey Irma, your mom called my dad asking for your contact info for some family emergency. She said you were refusing to help with a crisis and that she needed relatives to talk sense into you. What's going on?" The web of manipulation kept expanding. How many family members had they contacted? How far were they willing to go to get this money? I spent the next hour calling relatives, warning them about the situation and explaining the truth. Aunt Patricia had received a lengthy email from Mom about my selfish behavior. Uncle Robert had gotten a call from Dad about family loyalty issues. Even my elderly grandfather had been contacted with a story about Ashley facing social humiliation. Each conversation revealed more layers of deception. My family had crafted a narrative where I was the villain, a greedy, successful daughter who'd forgotten her roots and abandoned her struggling relatives. They'd spread this story to anyone who might have influence over me, creating a network of pressure designed to break my resistance. The most heartbreaking call was from my cousin Emily Ashley's age, who'd received social media messages from my sister. "Irma Ashley's been texting me for days about this prom situation. She said your parents are considering bankruptcy because of financial stress and that you're the only one who can save the family. She made it sound like a life or death emergency." Emily, our parents are nowhere near bankruptcy. This is entirely about wanting me to fund an extravagant prom experience that Ashley should pay for herself. That's so different from what Ashley told me. She said your dad might lose his apartment and your mom can't afford groceries. She asked if my parents could loan the family money since you were being heartless about helping. The scope of their lies was breathtaking. They'd created fictional financial crises, exaggerated family struggles, and painted me as a cold-hearted villain who'd abandoned my suffering relatives. All of this orchestrated manipulation for $3,000 to fund one teenager's fantasy prom experience. As I hung up from the last call, I realized this wasn't really about prom at all. This was about power control and establishing a precedent. If they could force me to hand over $3,000 through emotional blackmail and family pressure, they'd know exactly how to manipulate me for future demands. They'd crossed every possible boundary, financial, professional, and personal. The family I'd loved and trusted had revealed themselves as skilled manipulators, willing to damage my reputation and violate my privacy to get what they wanted. It was time to fight back. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Ashley had apparently escalated her campaign overnight, and the nuclear option was in full effect. My phone rang as I was making coffee. The caller ID showed my Aunt Linda, my father's sister, who lived in Texas. Irma Marie Martinez. Her voice boomed through the speaker with righteous indignation. "I just got off the phone with your father, and I am absolutely disgusted by your behavior. How dare you abandon your family during their time of need?" "Aunt Linda, I think you've been given incorrect information about the situation." "Incorrect information. Your sister is facing the humiliation of her lifetime because you're too selfish to help with prom expenses. Your parents are struggling financially after that ugly divorce, and you're living it up with your fancy job while your baby sister suffers. Aunt Linda Ashley wants $3,000 for prom luxuries, not necessities. Our parents aren't struggling, they're just enabling her unrealistic expectations. Don't you dare lecture me about family values, young lady. Your grandfather built this family on the principle that we take care of each other. You're spitting on his memory by turning your back on Ashley when she needs you most. The call ended abruptly, but it was just the beginning. Uncle Frank called 20 minutes later with the same outrage. Cousin Stephanie sent a lengthy Facebook message about family loyalty. Even relatives I hadn't spoken to in years were suddenly contacting me with guilt trips and lectures about selfishness. Then I checked Ashley's social media and discovered the true scope of her manipulation campaign. She'd posted a lengthy Instagram story with the caption, "When your own sister values money more than family." The post included screenshots of our text conversation carefully edited to remove her initial demand and show only my refusal to help. Her TikTok account was even worse. She'd created a series of videos about family betrayal and toxic siblings who abandon you. The videos were going viral among high school students, with hundreds of comments expressing sympathy for her situation and outrage at my behavior. My sister makes $60,000 a year but won't help me afford prom. She sobbed into the camera. She says I should get a job and earn it myself, like prom only happens once in your entire life. I've been dreaming about this night since I was a little girl, and my own family is destroying it over money. The comments were brutal. Teenagers from across the country were calling me selfish, heartless, and cruel. Some had even found my workplace information and were threatening to contact my employer about my abusive behavior toward family. My phone rang again. This time, it was my boss, Margaret, calling from her personal cell phone. "Irma, I need you to come in early today. We have a situation that requires immediate attention." "Is everything okay, Margaret?" "We'll discuss it when you get here. Just plan to be in my office at 8:30 instead of your usual 9 o'clock start time." The drive to work felt like a death march. I'd been at Patterson & Associates for 3 years, building a solid reputation as a reliable professional accountant. Now my family drama was threatening to destroy everything I'd worked for. Margaret's office felt smaller than usual as I sat across from her mahogany desk. She looked uncomfortable, shuffling papers unnecessarily before making eye contact. "Irma, I received some concerning communications yesterday afternoon regarding your family situation. Your mother called our main line and spoke with Jennifer in HR, claiming there was a family emergency requiring financial assistance. When Jennifer explained that we don't have programs for that, your mother became quite insistent. Margaret, I apologize for my family contacting the office. I never authorized any of these communications, and I'm mortified that they've brought personal drama to our workplace." "That's not all, Irma. This morning I found several voice messages on my direct line from relatives claiming you're financially abusing your younger sister. They suggested that our company should intervene to ensure you're meeting your family obligations." "My family is trying to pressure me into paying $3,000 for my sister's prom expenses. When I refused, they've launched a campaign to force my compliance through public humiliation and professional sabotage." Margaret leaned back in her chair, studying my face carefully. "Irma, you're one of our most valued employees. Your work has been exemplary, and I have no concerns about your character. However, I need to know that this situation won't continue to impact our workplace." "I understand completely, Margaret. I'm taking steps to address the harassment and establish clear boundaries with my family members. This won't happen again." "Good. Now there's something else. Jennifer mentioned that your mother asked detailed questions about your salary benefits and financial situation. That's completely inappropriate, and we've documented the incident in case further action becomes necessary." The humiliation was complete. My own mother had called my employer fishing for information about my finances while painting me as an abusive family member who needed workplace intervention to force compliance. After the meeting, I sat in my cubicle staring at my computer screen, unable to focus on spreadsheets and client accounts. My phone kept buzzing with notifications from social media platforms where Ashley's campaign was gaining momentum. Sarah wheeled her chair over from her adjacent desk. "Irma, are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." My family has declared war on me because I won't pay for my sister's prom expenses. They've contacted relatives across the country, posted lies on social media, and now they're calling my workplace, trying to force me to comply with their demands. That's insane, Irma. Have you considered getting a lawyer involved? This sounds like harassment at this point. Before I could answer, my phone rang with another unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Is this Irma Martinez?" The voice belonged to an older woman I didn't recognize. "Yes, who is this?" "This is Mrs. Henderson Ashley's guidance counselor at Roosevelt High School. I'm calling because your sister has been in my office several times this week, extremely distressed about what she describes as financial abuse from her family. She's concerned that her home situation might prevent her from participating in normal senior activities." "Mrs. Henderson, there's no financial abuse happening. My sister asked me to pay $3,000 for luxury prom expenses, and I declined. I suggested she get a part-time job and budget for more reasonable alternatives." That's quite different from what Ashley has told me. She indicated that your family is facing severe financial hardship and that you're the only one with resources to help. She seemed genuinely fearful about discussing the situation. "Mrs. Henderson, my sister is manipulating you. Our family is not facing any financial crisis. This entire situation stems from her unwillingness to work for money she wants to spend on prom." "Miss Martinez, I have to take student reports of family dysfunction seriously. Ashley has provided what appears to be evidence of family conflict, including text messages and social media posts that suggest ongoing emotional abuse. The school counselor had been weaponized in my family's campaign. Ashley had taken our private family disagreement to school officials, painting herself as a victim of abuse while demanding institutional intervention on her behalf. By lunchtime, I'd received calls from 2 more relatives, 3 of Ashley's friends' parents, and a neighbor who'd heard about the family crisis through the community grapevine. My sister had successfully turned a simple boundary issue into a full-scale public relations disaster designed to force my surrender. That evening, I came home to find my elderly neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, waiting by my apartment door with a concerned expression. "Irma, dear, I hope you don't mind me asking, but I received a very troubling phone call today. Your grandmother called me to ask if I'd noticed any signs that you were struggling with mental health issues. She seemed worried that you might be having some kind of breakdown that's affecting your judgment about family matters." Mrs. Patterson: "I appreciate your concern, but I'm not having any mental health crisis. My family is upset because I declined to pay for my sister's prom expenses, and they're trying to pressure me through manipulation and public embarrassment." "Oh my," she said, looking relieved. "That's quite different from what your grandmother suggested. She made it sound like you were going through some kind of personal crisis that was causing you to make harmful decisions about family relationships." Even my neighbors weren't safe from my family's manipulation campaign. They'd contacted everyone in my life, spreading false narratives and questioning my mental stability to build a case for forced compliance. As I finally entered my apartment and locked the door behind me, I realized that tomorrow would bring more of the same. More calls, more lies, more public humiliation, designed to break my resolve and force me to hand over the money. But something had changed during this day of relentless attack. Instead of feeling defeated, I felt angry. Clear, righteous anger at the violation of my privacy, the attacks on my reputation, and the manipulation of innocent third parties in their campaign against me. They wanted to play hardball. I was ready to show them what that actually looked like. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mrs. Henderson's concerned face, or heard Margaret's professional disappointment, or imagined my coworkers whispering about my family dysfunction. By 3 a.m, I'd made a decision that would change everything. I was going to find out the truth about my family's real financial situation. At 8 a.m., I called Precision Investigations, a private detective agency I'd found through online research. Within 2 hours, I was sitting across from Detective Ray Coleman, a former police officer who specialized in financial investigations. Miss Martinez, I understand you need verification of family financial claims. Can you provide specific details about what you've been told versus what you suspect is true? I laid out the entire situation. Ashley's prom demands my parents' claims of post-divorce financial struggles, the extended family's involvement, and the systematic campaign to pressure me into compliance. Detective Coleman, before I make any decisions about family relationships, I need to know the actual facts. Are my parents really struggling financially? Is Ashley truly unable to afford prom through her own efforts, or am I being manipulated with false information? I can investigate property records, vehicle registrations, employment histories, and recent major purchases for all the family members you've mentioned. Financial truth has a paper trail, Miss Martinez. If someone's lying about money troubles, we'll uncover it quickly. 3 days later, Detective Coleman called with results that shattered everything I thought I knew about my family's situation. Miss Martinez, your parents are not experiencing any financial hardship whatsoever. In fact, both of them have significantly more disposable income than they've led you to believe. What did you find? Your father purchased a $28,000 base boat 6 weeks ago paying cash according to dealer records. Your mother bought a brand new Toyota Camry last month also with cash payment. Neither purchase suggests financial stress or post-divorce struggles. But they've been telling everyone they're barely getting by since the divorce. According to divorce settlement records, both parents received substantial asset distributions. Your mother got the house now valued at $240,000, with only $60,000 remaining on the mortgage. Your father received the investment portfolio worth approximately $180,000. They're both employed full-time with comfortable incomes. What about Ashley's job situation? Your sister has been employed part-time at Boutique Bella for 7 months, earning approximately $400 per month. However, bank records show she's spent over $3,000 on clothing and accessories during that same period. How is that possible on $400 a month? Your parents have been supplementing her income substantially. They've been giving her additional money for discretionary spending while claiming they can't afford prom expenses. The financial need they've described to you and other family members is completely fabricated. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd expected. Detective Coleman, is there anything else I should know? Yes, Miss Martinez. Your family has done this before. I found records of similar financial requests made to your Uncle Thomas 3 years ago for Ashley's school trip expenses. They claimed financial hardship then, too, while making significant luxury purchases during the same time period. They manipulated Uncle Thomas the same way. According to his wife, your Aunt Martha, they pressured him for nearly $2,000 for Ashley's educational needs. When he finally paid, they never mentioned repayment, and your sister went on an expensive shopping spree the following week. I hung up feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. Everything my family had told me about their financial situation was a lie. They weren't struggling, desperate, or unable to afford Ashley's prom expenses. They simply preferred to manipulate me into paying rather than use their own resources or require Ashley to work for what she wanted. But Detective Coleman's report contained one more revelation that changed everything. Ashley's prom date. Tyler's family had already paid for everything. The limo rental, the restaurant reservations, the after-party venue, all of it was covered by his parents as their contribution to the prom experience. Ashley's $3,000 demand wasn't even necessary for her to attend prom in style. The entire crisis was manufactured. They'd created a false emergency spread lies about financial hardship and launched a family-wide campaign to pressure me into giving them money they didn't need for expenses they weren't actually responsible for covering. I called Ashley directly, my voice steady with newfound clarity. Ashley, I know Tyler's parents are paying for everything. I know Dad bought a $28,000 boat last month. I know Mom got a new car. I know you've been working at Boutique Bella and spending your money on designer clothes while claiming you can't afford prom. Silence stretched between us for nearly 30 seconds. "Irma, I don't know what you're talking about," she finally stammered. "I hired a private investigator, Ashley. I have documentation of every purchase, every bank transaction, and every lie you've told about our family's financial situation. This was never about Prom. This was about testing whether you could manipulate me into handing over money on demand. You hired a private investigator on your own family." Her voice shifted from defensive to outraged. "That's psychotic, Irma. You've completely lost your mind. What's psychotic is lying to relatives across the country, contacting my workplace, and posting manipulative social media content to force compliance with unreasonable financial demands. What's psychotic is creating fictional financial crises while making luxury purchases with cash. Whatever evidence you think you have doesn't change the fact that you're a terrible sister who values money more than family relationships. Ashley, the evidence I have proves that you're a practiced manipulator who's been enabled by parents who refuse to teach you financial responsibility. This pattern of behavior needs to stop before you destroy every relationship in your life. I'm telling Mom and Dad that you hired a private investigator to spy on our family. They're going to be furious. Tell them whatever you want, Ashley. I'm done being manipulated, guilt-tripped, and lied to. If this family can only function through financial coercion and emotional blackmail, then I don't want to be part of it anymore." I hung up and immediately began making plans for the most difficult decision of my adult life. If my family wanted to play manipulation games and spread lies about my character, I was going to respond with complete transparency about their behavior. It was time to turn their own tactics against them. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table with Detective Coleman's comprehensive report spread out before me, along with screenshots of every social media post, every text message, and every piece of evidence I'd gathered about my family's manipulation campaign. If they wanted to wage war through public pressure and reputation damage, I was about to show them what real transparency looked like. I opened my laptop and began typing the most important document I'd ever written. To all family members and friends who have been contacted about the Martinez family financial situation, a complete response with evidence. I spent 4 hours crafting a detailed factual response that included bank records, purchase receipts, employment verification, and a timeline of events that exposed every lie my family had told. I documented the attempted credit card fraud, the workplace harassment, the false claims of financial hardship, and the manufactured crisis around Ashley's prom expenses. The email included Detective Coleman's findings about my father's boat, purchased my mother's car payment, Ashley's employment history and spending patterns, and the revelation that Tyler's family had already covered all prom expenses. I attached screenshots of Ashley's social media posts bragging about expensive purchases alongside her claims of family poverty. Most importantly, I included documentation of their pattern of financial manipulation, with other family members proving this wasn't an isolated incident, but a systematic approach to avoiding personal responsibility. Before sending it, I read the entire document 3 times, ensuring every claim was factual and every piece of evidence was verifiable. This wasn't about revenge. This was about setting the record straight with people who'd been manipulated into pressuring me based on false information. I hit send to 43 family members, including everyone who'd contacted me during the week-long campaign. Within 2 hours, my phone started ringing. Aunt Linda was the first to call back, her voice completely different from our previous conversation. "Irma, honey, I owe you a massive apology. I had no idea your parents were lying about their financial situation. Your father made it sound like they were facing eviction and couldn't afford groceries. The evidence you've provided shows a completely different picture." "Aunt Linda, I understand why you believed them. They've had years to perfect their manipulation techniques, and they know exactly which emotional buttons to push. I feel like such a fool. Your father showed me Ashley's social media posts about family betrayal, and I believed the whole narrative without questioning it. I'm so sorry for the harsh things I said to you. Uncle Frank called an hour later with a similar apology, followed by cousin Stephanie, and then a parade of relatives who'd been deceived by my family's coordinated lies. But the most satisfying call came from Mrs. Henderson Ashley's guidance counselor. Miss Martinez, I received your detailed response to the allegations your sister made about family financial abuse. After reviewing the documentation you provided, I need to apologize for questioning your character. Ashley presented a very convincing narrative, but the evidence clearly shows she was manipulating the situation. Mrs. Henderson: I appreciate your apology, but more importantly, I hope this helps you recognize similar manipulation tactics if other students try to use school resources to pressure family members into unreasonable financial compliance. Absolutely. We're implementing new protocols for family financial dispute reporting to prevent students from weaponizing our counseling services in the future. I also sent copies of my evidence compilation to my boss, Margaret, and HR representative Jennifer, along with a formal complaint about my family's workplace harassment. Within 24 hours, I received written confirmation that the company was implementing security measures to prevent similar incidents and would be documenting my family members as prohibited from contacting the workplace about personal matters. But the real satisfaction came from watching Ashley's social media campaign collapse in real time. Her TikTok videos about family betrayal were flooded with comments from people who'd seen my evidence compilation. Users were calling her out for lying, posting screenshots of her expensive purchase receipts alongside her claims of poverty, and sharing the story as an example of manipulative behavior. Wait so your parents have money but want your sister to pay for your prom. Read one comment with 200 likes, and Tyler's family already covered everything anyway, girl, you played yourself. Ashley started deleting posts frantically, but social media users had already saved screenshots and were reposting them with commentary about her deception. Her attempt at viral victimhood had backfired spectacularly. The most beautiful moment came when Tyler's mother, Mrs. Patterson, posted a public comment on Ashley's Instagram. Sweetie, we already told you weeks ago that we're covering all the prom expenses for both of you. Why are you asking your sister for money you don't need? Ashley's response was to delete her entire social media presence temporarily, but the damage was done. Her reputation for honesty was shattered among her peers, and her manipulation tactics were exposed for everyone to see. Meanwhile, my extended family was rallying around me with apologies and support. Aunt Patricia sent a lengthy text acknowledging that she'd been manipulated and promising to be more skeptical of family financial drama in the future. Uncle Robert called to commend me for standing up to bullying and offering his support if my parents retaliated further. Most importantly, several relatives revealed that they'd lent money to my family in previous years based on similar false claims of financial hardship. Uncle Thomas and Aunt Martha confirmed Detective Coleman's findings about the school trip manipulation, and Cousin David admitted he'd given my parents $800 last Christmas for emergency car repairs that apparently never happened. My family's pattern of financial manipulation was exposed across their entire network-ending years of successful guilt-tripping and manufactured crises. That evening, my father called with a voice I'd never heard before, defeated, angry, and defensive all at once. Irma, what you've done to this family is unforgivable. Hiring a private investigator, spreading our personal business to everyone we know, humiliating your sister on social media, you've destroyed relationships that took decades to build. Dad, I documented facts and shared evidence of lies you told about me. If the truth destroys your relationships, maybe those relationships were built on deception from the beginning. You had no right to invade our privacy or expose our personal financial information. You had no right to contact my workplace, spread lies about my character, or manipulate relatives into pressuring me based on false information. You violated my privacy first when you tried to access my credit cards without permission. Your mother and I are considering cutting all contact with you permanently. This betrayal of family loyalty is something we may never be able to forgive. Dad, if family loyalty requires enabling manipulation, accepting lies, and funding irresponsible behavior, then I'm not interested in that kind of family. I love you, but I won't be anyone's personal ATM or emotional punching bag. He hung up without saying goodbye, but for the first time in weeks, I felt completely at peace with my decision. The war was over and truth had won. 6 months later, I was sitting in my favorite coffee shop when Ashley walked in looking completely different from the entitled teenager who demanded $3,000 for prom. She was wearing simple jeans and a modest sweater instead of designer clothes, and her face had lost the spoiled princess expression that had defined her personality for years. She approached my table hesitantly, clutching a folded piece of paper in her hands. "Irma, could we talk for a few minutes? I know I don't deserve your time after everything that happened, but I have some things I need to say." I gestured to the empty chair across from me, curious about this transformed version of my sister. "First, I want to apologize for everything. The manipulation, the lies, the social media campaign, all of it was wrong, and I'm ashamed of how I behaved." She unfolded the paper in her hands, revealing what looked like a handwritten letter. "I've been seeing a counselor since graduation, working on understanding why I thought it was acceptable to treat family members like personal bank accounts. Ashley, I appreciate the apology, but what changed? The last time we spoke, you called me psychotic for hiring a private investigator. Mom and Dad's reaction to your evidence compilation opened my eyes. Instead of acknowledging their lies or taking responsibility for the manipulation, they doubled down and tried to paint you as the villain for exposing the truth. Watching them refuse to admit any wrongdoing made me realize I was following the same pattern. She handed me the letter she'd been holding. "This is something my counselor suggested I write a complete acknowledgement of every harmful thing I did during that situation, along with the changes I'm making to ensure it never happens again." I read through her letter, surprised by its depth and specificity. She detailed every manipulation tactic, every lie she'd told, and every way she'd violated my boundaries and privacy. But more importantly, she'd outlined concrete steps she was taking to develop financial independence and healthy relationship skills. "Ashley, this is really thoughtful. What prompted you to seek counseling?" "Tyler's parents, actually. After prom night, Mrs. Patterson sat me down for what she called a life lesson conversation. She told me that my behavior toward you was a preview of how I'd treat my future spouse, friends, and co-workers if I didn't learn to respect boundaries and take responsibility for my own needs. That must have been difficult to hear. It was humiliating, but necessary. She explained that healthy relationships require mutual respect, not financial coercion and emotional manipulation. She said I was developing patterns that would destroy every important relationship in my life if I didn't change immediately. Ashley went on to explain the changes she'd made over the past 6 months. She'd taken a second part-time job and was saving money for college expenses instead of spending everything on designer items. She'd apologized to extended family members for her role in the manipulation campaign and was working to rebuild trust through consistent, honest behavior. Most importantly, she'd confronted our parents about their enabling behavior and demanded they attend family therapy sessions if they wanted to maintain a relationship with her. "Mom and Dad weren't happy about my new boundaries," she admitted. "They tried to convince me that you'd brainwashed me against them, but I realized that healthy families don't operate through guilt trips and financial manipulation. What we did to you was emotional abuse, and I refuse to participate in that kind of dysfunction anymore." "How are things with Mom and Dad now?" "Better but different. They're finally in therapy working on their tendency to manipulate family members instead of communicating directly about their needs. Dad sold the boat and is learning to live within his actual budget instead of expecting family bailouts for luxury purchases. Mom has apologized to several relatives for lying about our financial situation. And they're okay with you having a relationship with me." Ashley smiled for the first time during our conversation. "I told them that rebuilding trust with you was non-negotiable. Either they accept that I'm going to have a healthy relationship with my sister, or I'll limit contact with them until they're ready to behave like adults. I was impressed by her maturity and clear thinking. The spoiled teenager who demanded $3,000 for prom had evolved into a young woman who understood personal responsibility and healthy boundaries. Irma. I know I have years of work ahead to prove that I've really changed, but I was hoping we could start slowly rebuilding our relationship. Maybe coffee once a month, where we can talk about real things instead of money or family drama. I'd like that, Ashley. I've missed having a sister who actually cared about me as a person instead of seeing me as a resource to be exploited. There's one more thing, she said, reaching into her purse and pulling out an envelope. I calculated how much money our family cost you during that entire situation. The private investigator fees, the time off work for meetings, the stress and humiliation. It's not everything, but it's a start toward making things right. Inside the envelope was a cashier's check for $800 and a payment plan showing how she intended to compensate me for the full cost of defending myself against their manipulation campaign. Ashley, you don't have to. Yes, I do, she interrupted firmly. Taking responsibility means making amends for the harm I caused, not just apologizing and expecting forgiveness without consequences. This money represents months of extra work shifts and careful budgeting, but it's important for me to prove that I understand the real cost of my behavior. As I walked home from the coffee shop, I reflected on the transformation that had taken place over 6 months. My family's manipulation campaign had initially felt like a devastating attack on everything I'd worked for, but ultimately, it had forced all of us to confront unhealthy patterns and make fundamental changes in how we related to each other. Ashley had learned financial responsibility and emotional maturity through natural consequences, rather than continued enabling. My parents were finally addressing their tendency to manipulate others instead of taking responsibility for their own choices. Extended family members had developed better boundaries around financial requests and were more skeptical of manufactured crises. Most importantly, I'd learned to trust my instincts about manipulation and stand firm in my boundaries even when facing overwhelming pressure from people I loved. The experience had taught me that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for family members is refuse to enable their dysfunction. By saying no to Ashley's unreasonable demand and exposing the lies surrounding it, I'd forced everyone involved to grow and change in positive ways. 3 months later, I established the Personal Responsibility Scholarship at Roosevelt High School, providing prom assistance for students who demonstrated financial need and had worked to save money for the event themselves. The scholarship required recipients to submit budgets, work histories, and essays about financial responsibility, ensuring that help went to students who truly needed support rather than those who simply expected others to fund their desires. Ashley was the first to volunteer for the Scholarship Selection Committee, using her experience to help identify students with genuine need versus those attempting manipulation. The scholarship program became my way of addressing the real issue behind the prom conflict. Some students truly can't afford these milestone events, while others simply prefer to manipulate family members rather than work for what they want. Today, 2 years later, our family operates on completely different principles. We communicate directly about our needs instead of using manipulation and guilt trips. We respect each other's financial boundaries and celebrate personal achievements rather than expecting handouts. We've learned that genuine love doesn't require financial coercion or emotional blackmail. The experience taught me that setting boundaries isn't cruel, it's essential for healthy relationships. Sometimes people need to face natural consequences for their choices in order to develop character and personal responsibility. The most loving thing I ever did for Ashley was refusing to enable her manipulation and forcing her to grow into a mature, responsible adult. Family relationships built on mutual respect and honest communication are infinitely more valuable than those maintained through guilt, manipulation, and financial obligation. True love doesn't demand that you sacrifice your boundaries, values, or financial security to prove your loyalty. Standing up to manipulation was the hardest thing I'd ever done, but it led to the healthiest family relationships I'd ever experienced. Sometimes the people who love you most are those who refuse to enable your worst impulses and demand that you become the best version of yourself. The lesson I learned, and that I hope resonates with anyone facing similar family pressure, is that you can love someone deeply while still maintaining firm boundaries around their behavior. Enabling dysfunction isn't love, it's fear, disguised as compassion. True love sometimes requires the courage to say no and allow people to experience the natural consequences of their choices. Have you ever had to set firm boundaries with family members who expected financial support without taking responsibility for their own choices? How did you handle the pressure and guilt trips that often come with standing up for your values? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and share it with others who might be facing similar family dynamics. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about overcoming manipulation and building healthy relationships. Thank you for listening, and remember that you have the right to protect your boundaries, even with people you love deeply.